As we contemplate the sacrament of baptism, we all know the importance of being honest with ourselves and with God about the nature of our inward lives. I also know that from time to time, honest self-reflection can be at least slightly detrimental to one's self-esteem. Now, just so we're clear, I don't endorse the old Calvinist creeds that we are a bunch of miserable sinners, but it is necessary to consider from time to time the characteristics about ourselves that stand in need of improvement. If we want to keep growing spiritually, that is. But who among us enjoys reflecting on those things about ourselves that need improvement? In HR speak, we call them opportunities for development, because that sounds better somehow. Who among us enjoys hearing what we could have done better, or when we have hurt or offended someone? And who truly among us likes to dwell on lost opportunities to have done what could have been a good turn? But the sacrament of baptism always stands as a reminder to us of the journey that God calls us to enter into as we grow in the life of faith. And unless we want to have a serious case of spiritual arrested development, we need, from time to time, to think on these things. And the epistle lesson for our day today from James is exquisitely well positioned to help us with honest reflection. But I wonder, as I was reading, how many of us enjoyed that passage. Rarely is a text so plainly about what it says it is about. This text is about the trouble that our mouths can get us into. We do seem to be living in an era where words fly around with alternately little consideration for their targets, or conversely, very specific intentions for their targets. And I am ever mindful that we have no control over the behavior of others, only of ourselves. I remember very well a day when it was this last spring, a day when I became so disgusted by what I perceived as the laxity of self-government in social media that I decided I needed to withdraw from it completely. So I killed all of my accounts and stepped away from all things social media. But then as I was preparing to come here to you, I realized that I was losing a chance to get to know you and for you to get to know me and to keep up with old friends. So I reopened the account and was very quickly sucked right back in again. But it was a reminder to me that simply not engaging with what we see as problematic is just as problematic as being the perpetrator. To put it simply, God expects of us not that we will disengage from the unpleasantness we may encounter, but that we engage with words that work for the healing of creation. That means that we have a moral responsibility as Christians to take an active position of resistance to two particular sins: slander and gossip. One of my good friends, who is now deceased, had a wonderful turn of phrase she would use to preface anything she wanted to share. We had lunch together regularly, and she would always lean in and say, "Now, I never repeat gossip. So listen carefully, I'm only going to say this once." Of course, there's that marvelous old line from Alice Roosevelt that we heard in Steel Magnolias: "If you don't have anything nice to say, come sit by me." Both of these, as humorous as they are, suggest that gossip and slander, other such slips of the tongue, aren't really so very dangerous, are they? Just lean in. We'll have us a little chat. It'll just be between you and me. The problem is what that really means. We're going to use our words to create a tight little community here, just you and me. They don't say that if we do it just right, someone will be on the outside. And we'll have a really special little club, just the two of us. We'll divide the world up according to our preferences. So dangerous did Dietrich Bonhoeffer consider the sin of gossip that in the underground seminary that he led during the Second World War, students were prohibited from speaking about another student, even to praise him, unless that student were present to hear everything that was said. Gossip, slander, words filled with venom. They're not benign. They're designed to cut, to tear at flesh, to divide community. James is spot on in his assessment of these things. But what's interesting is the reformers did not particularly like the book of James. One very prominent professor in our denomination, I recently learned this, tore the book of James out of his Bible, so much did he detest James. Martin Luther felt that it should be excised, culled out of the Bible, because it smacked so deeply of works righteousness. Another prominent scholar, the dean of one of our seminaries, has referred to James as a bunch of pietistic do-goodery. Left to their own devices, James would never be read in church, wouldn't even be a part of our Bible, but how much would we lose in honesty without the words of James? James, who reminds us to be doers of the word and not merely hearers of it. To be fair, it's probably one of the least sophisticated books of the Bible, which means its meaning is probably also the plainest. You know where you stand with James. You know what he is saying to you and about your life particularly. And this morning in James, we know exactly what he had to say about the untamed tongue. Now, you and I all know the nursery school rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. It's not true. Words can hurt. Words can cut to the quick. I've never forgotten an experience that I had many years ago at a presbytery meeting during one of the alphabet soup amendments of our denomination. A minister colleague of mine stood on the floor of the Whitewater Valley Presbytery prior to a particularly contentious vote, one that we anticipated would have a great deal of back and forth in the debate. And he stood up as the first speaker to the motion, and he said to the gathered body, "I would like to move that we not have this debate. We can have the vote, but none of us are going to say anything that will change anyone's minds. We'll just have a lot of back and forth, a great number of speeches, and as I make this motion," he said, "I'm very mindful that words can hurt or words can heal. And if our words are not spoken to heal, they are best not spoken. So I move that we dispense with debate and go straight to our vote." The presbytery, of course, voted to have a debate anyway, and he was absolutely right. Words were spoken that were not spoken to heal. And at one point, I looked down the pew and observed a member of my congregation, a woman I knew to be estranged from her son for the very reasons that the speeches were being made, and there, in the context of worship, sat quietly weeping. Words can hurt, or words can heal. Listen to what Frederick Buechner says. In Hebrew, the word dabar means both word and deed. Thus, to say something is to do something. Did you know that? To say something is to do something. Well, since I seem to be sharing dog stories these days, let me tell you another one. Our beagle, Tucker, was adopted as a 4-month-old puppy, and for the first number of months that he lived with us, he had an absolutely adorable practice. As I would finish my shower and open the curtain, he would run into the bathroom and proceed to lick my toes. And trust me, for dog people, this is adorable. Well, one Saturday, as I shaved and got ready in the morning, I looked over and the bathroom just didn't look as clean as I wanted it to, so I took down the shower curtain and sprayed the shower down with Tilex and went and threw it into the laundry because it needed cleaning. And being a Saturday, I went outside and mowed the grass and worked in the yard for about an hour or so, and then I realized I needed cleaning, and remembering that I had sprayed Tilex in the master bath, I went to the guest bathroom and said to take a shower, and when I finished my shower, Tucker the beagle decided he would do his adorable thing. He ran in to lick my toes as I dried off, but the problem was that the guest bathtub was a little bit slicker than the master bathtub, and I started to slip. I didn't slip far, but I slipped just enough that my foot came at his nose and just barely grazed the tip of it. He ran off with his tail between his legs, and he was afraid to come back. Only after a while did we make peace. I felt about an inch tall. He has never taken the practice back up. What's true of dogs is all the more true of human beings. When words cut, they can't be unsaid. They can't be undone. And just as my dog wasn't going to take any chances, he didn't want to risk getting his nose bumped again, when our words cut and when our words hurt, we do damage to the fabric of community. I could talk to him as sweetly as I wanted, but he still remembers my inadvertent foot coming at him. Now, this past week, I decided to do an unscientific poll. So I asked through the marvels of social media, what words hurt and what words heal? And you won't be surprised, I imagine, by any of the things that came out in this informal survey. Words that hurt were words like, you've disappointed me, or I hate you, or I don't support you. Stupid. That was a word that hurt. You're not good enough. And I can't imagine either that you'll be surprised to learn that the words that heal were words like, I'm proud of you, or I understand, I forgive you, and I love you, were all words that heal. None of this will come as any surprise, and please pardon me if I'm being pedantic, but James is really, really clear that knowing what hurts someone and doing something about our mouths can be dangerously far apart in our lives of faith. I can't think of when a scripture lesson has a plainer meaning for the times we live in than this one. Buechner adds this: I love you, I hate you, I forgive you, I am afraid. Who knows what such words do? But whatever it is, it cannot be undone. Something that lay hidden in the heart is irrevocably released through speech into time, is given substance and tossed like a stone into a pool of history where the concentric circles lap out endlessly. So imagine this. In that same unscientific poll, several people added something to this effect. Words don't heal, actions heal. As Buechner said, debar means word and deed. The words that heal are the words that are accompanied by acts of healing. That's why dog trainers say to use positive reinforcement, not negative reinforcement. And I suppose I'm left with the question of whether or not James's advice really is pietistic do-goodery, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But he couldn't be any plainer. Words that hurt turn into deeds. And words that heal, if they have any effect, are also deeds. And so as we prepare for the sacrament of baptism, we are reminded to examine our lives to see whether we are working to heal creation, partnered with God in doing the work of healing. Because you see, baptism is inherently about bringing in. And because baptism, the sacrament of inclusion, is inherently about bringing in, any words that divide are unworthy of our baptism. That's why I love an old poem by Edwin Markham. You may have heard it. It's called Outwitted, and it goes like this. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, a rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. I could go on, I suppose. But this doesn't really need any further explanation, does it? It just needs further living. Words, slander, and gossip and meanness can draw a circle to shut out. Or words, kindness, gentleness, and goodness can draw a circle that draws in. It's up to us. Over so little of our lives do we have such ultimate control. But if we will heed James's word and work on taming our tongues, not just to refrain from the things we wish we hadn't said, but to actively speak the words of love and grace and peace and kindness, we may find ourselves moving just a little bit closer to that life abundant that Jesus promised us.